Coogs House. All right, it is officially NFL Draft Week. We got Houston Cougars looking to make a lot of money and get some new jobs. Let's get after it.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cougs, the daily podcast all about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach, Parker Ainsworth, here to break down all things Cougs. If you're a U of H fan or just a hater can't step by, please be sure to hit subscribe down below. That way you listen to Cougs in your newsfeed each and every day. We appreciate you making Locked On Cougs your first listen of the day. Welcome back to the YouTube channel, and it is good to see you again. We were at about, 1,000 and just over 70 subscribers. I remember we get to 1,250, we're giving something away because we're doing something every 250. We're giving actually a hat just like that. You see that? You see that the Locked On right there? The Coug, all that. Give one of those away at 1,250. So hit subscribe down below to make sure that we get there, and be liking and commenting on the videos to make sure that we know that you are entered. It'll make more sense in a second, but if you, after talking about draft, you're kind of burnt out on talking about football, you can't think of what to say, tell us in the comments down below what part of the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup is more important, the chocolate or the peanut butter. There is a wrong answer to that one. All right, so here's the deal. Is today we're talking about the NFL draft, getting ready for the NFL draft. So to kick off the week, we brought in an expert, John Vogel, who has been covering the NFL draft year-round for several years now. And you know what? Let's get to him. All right. I am joined by one John Vogel, also known as Draft Vogel on Twitter. John covers the draft year-round. John, how are you doing today?
Great, Parker. Thank you for the opportunity to come on here and talk about some Cougars. It's not a school that we talk about enough sometimes, but hey, maybe that'll be changing here soon, right?
Yeah, moving to the Big 12, things could be changing. I really think, too, you're starting to see, everyone remembers Marcus Jones's Patriots highlights a year ago. Like that's also a Houston Cougar, right? Like at Oliver and the Bills and the play, like that's also a Houston Cougar. We're popping up in some spots. And I reached out because we do have some guys that are looking to make some NFL news at the NFL draft this upcoming weekend. And frankly, I think the headliner after the Senior Bowl, after like the All-Star circuit, I guess you could really say, was Tank Dell. And so I want to start with, first of all, when you look at Tank Dell, what do you see as like the pros and cons of any team trying to draft a guy like Tank Dell?
Yeah, pros, obviously route running. I mean, he's a great route runner. He's got a really good release off the line of scrimmage, especially for his size. We're talking about a guy that's 5'8", 163, measured into the combine. Those are a little concerning on numbers, right? When you look at the direction of the slot receiver and where that's evolving in the NFL. So, Wes Welker obviously was pretty much the inventor, I guess you could say, of the slot. Bill Belichick found a way to get a 5'6" guy matched up on linebackers, and he had caught 100 passes a year for what felt like a decade, but it was only like 3 or 4 years. But it was critical to the development of offenses in the NFL, why we see a lot of 11 personnel, so just one running back, one tight end on the field. And then, to back all that up, you have, defenses switching to the nickel. Defenses now in the NFL run 70% of their defense out of the nickel, which is 5 defensive backs. So, when you take all that into consideration, the slot position itself is evolving. And, so the Pittsburgh Steelers did a really good job a few years ago of drafting a guy named Chase Claypool out of Notre Dame to play in the slot all exclusively. He caught 10 touchdowns his rookie year from there. And they were pretty much all on the seam, because he was a 6'5" guy matched up with smaller defensive backs that couldn't cover him. So as a quarterback, you just have to put the ball up there and just, pray that he catches it. And if he does, it's a touchdown. Well, for the most part. So that's what happened. So when you kind of see these smaller slot receivers, there's a lot of teams that still use them, just not as exclusively as they used to because of the need for size in the slot. So it's all about matchups. The league is totally turned into a matchup-oriented game entirely. So when you kind of look at Dell, he can fit into some of those places where you use smaller receivers underneath, Shanahan systems. McVay systems. Those are all the same sort of family of offensive systems. There's about 12 teams right now that are running them. So that's an automatic fit in 12 different places for, a guy like Tank. So obviously, really great receiver in terms of just he was very productive at Houston. I mean, there was a difference in the offense when he was on the field versus when he was not. So I think that says a lot about the type of player that he is as well. And then, he's got good hands. He's quick. He's got good speed, agile, all that stuff. It's just the real issue is size and how many snaps are you going to get out of him every game. That's really the question with him.
One, so size, for the listener that maybe isn't so super versed in the NFL game, the size deal is tremendous. I mean, at 5'8", 165, one side I'm pulling up has that listed as in the 3% of the smallest guys in height and in the 1% of the 1% of smallest guys in terms of weight, right? I mean, and when you talk about like getting run into or thrown to the ground by guys so much bigger, like durability does become an issue. He goes by Tank because he is a tough guy. So I don't know how to weigh that in. If you're a team drafting him though, that's the kind of thing keeping him out of the first round as far as slot receivers go, because statistically he would have had as good a college career as anyone in the draft.
Yeah, and it is size, and it's that, and like you said, 1 percentile inside the 1 percentile of players in terms of his weight. And there's only one guy I can think of that's lighter than him in the NFL right now, and that's Tutu Atwell, who's with the Rams, who came out of Louisville. He came in at 155 pounds when he was drafted, that was absurd, and he went in the second round. Which a lot of people were very surprised when we went there too. But no, I think that the third round makes a lot of sense with him just because you have that route running ability that you can bring in. He's shown the ability to get off and press because he's quick and he's agile and he's great through his breaks. That when you can get on one-on-one matchups, that's a big deal. It doesn't matter if the guy that you're playing against is bigger or whatever. If you are quick through your breaks and you can create that separation, you're going to get the ball. So third round, probably because of the size and the durability, it makes a lot of sense to me. I know that there's some places that have been sneaking him up into the second. I think that there's going to be a lot of interest in the receiver position overall. Once we get to the second round, you're not going to see a lot go in the first. You're going to see a lot in the second. And it's going to be right away in the second. So it just kind of depends. How long does that run go? Does somebody who really want him feel like they're not going to get him and have to take him earlier? That's the real question. And that's the other thing too. There's a couple other guys that are very similar to him. And this Trey Tucker out of Cincinnati, who also moving into the Big 12, right, to go moving up from that conference. Trey Tucker is he's one of those guys that he put on some clinics at the Senior Bowl. I mean, Tank did too, but Trey really came away with a lot of the hype. So he might be a guy that a team likes better than Tank. So they'll take him to fill that role before they take Tank. There's another guy out of TCU, Darius Davis, who could potentially have that interest as well. So again, it all comes down to opinions and where people grade out. And I think that weight hurts him a lot just because the other two guys that we've mentioned are at 175. So that's another 10 pounds that we're talking about. It's a little bit more durability in theory. So yeah, I think that third round makes a lot of sense with him. I would, if I had to guess a specific range, it'd be 75 to 85.
So let's work with 75 to 85. You got Atlanta, assuming there are no trades. It's Atlanta, New England, LA, Green Bay, Indy, Pittsburgh, Detroit, Tampa, Seattle, Miami, back to LA, the other LA Chargers. Is there a specific coach? You mentioned the McVay system. Now, the Rams are in that range. Is there some specific team that you just want to see a guy like Tank Dell in as a guy that does the draft all the time?
Well, honestly, and I'm not saying this just because, the Patriots took a guy out of Houston last year, and then you get to reunite these two on either side of the ball. But really, the Patriots, because they don't take a lot of, size into consideration very much. They're one of the few teams that they don't care. If you can play, you can play. And we know that because, they took Marcus Jones, who was 5'9". He had size concerns. By the way, I loved Marcus when he came out. I thought that every time I put on the tape, it felt like he was running this crazy across the field track down tackle to stop a touchdown. And I was like, that's the kind of guy that I want on my team right there. That guy,
To be fair, we missed those once he left. So
yeah, no, exactly. Right. He legit won games, it's crazy. But
yeah.
With that, just because he had that hustle, that tenaciousness. But I love that. But so I think that makes a lot of sense because they know how to use those types of receivers and they can scheme them in a lot of different ways. The problem is they really like Zay Flowers. I don't think Zay is going to be that slot guy for them. I think he's going to be a boundary guy, but you take a receiver early, first, second round. Like I think they could potentially take Zay at 14. It doesn't make a lot of sense to take another receiver in the third. So that I would love to see him on the Patriots. The Falcons could potentially make sense because they need to bulk up their receiver group. They just need playmakers. They got Drake London that they picked up from USC last year. They got Kyle Pitts. They went out and got another tight end so they can run their bulk sets. Now you got to go into when you go small. They don't have a small guy right now to kind of fill that slot. That's a place that can make sense. And then you also mentioned, the Rams and the Chargers. Those are two places too. I don't know if the Rams would be interested because they already have a small guy in Atwell, but the Chargers can make sense, because that's again, where did Brandon Staley come from? Where did all his guys come from? Oh, that's right. They came from the Rams, so they come from that tree as well. Now he brought in Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore is a very schematically oriented guy that knows how to use find those mismatch leverage pieces. He comes from the Cowboys he was the offensive coordinator there last year. And beyond me, why he got fired. My guess is sacrificial lamb for Kevin McCarthy to keep his job. But that'd be my guess. But I think that's those are teams that make sense to me in that range where he could potentially go.
Well, so we mentioned that Tank is looking like a third-round guy in a lot of grades, and I think you seem to be on like where most people have him at. The other guy I think that people assume will get drafted is just when and where is quarterback Clayton Tune. So I'd like to talk about him for a second. All right, it is time for grand slams, no hitters, double plays. They're all back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel. That's because FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. That's right. New customers get a new no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 at FanDuel. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to place your bets and get some $1,000 back in bonus bets if you don't win. Now, let's talk about a future bet here with FanDuel. The odds have shifted, and Houston is no longer the favorite to win the World Series. They're now the second. The Atlanta Braves have moved up to plus 550, and Houston has dropped to plus 700. Now, here's what I'm telling you. We'll put some money on Houston at plus 700 to win the World Series because we know Jose Altuve is coming back. The Astros are still hitting their stride. Imagine they had an arm or two at the deadline, and those same Atlanta Braves that theoretically Houston would be playing and said World Series. Yeah, Houston just swept them at their place last week. Y'all see Corey Julks on Sunday? Y'all saw Corey Julks on Sunday? Yeah. So that's what we're talking about here. I'm going to go make a bet on the Astros to win the World Series at plus 700 at FanDuel. Don't miss your chance to get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. FanDuel, an official sports partner of Major League Baseball. Clayton Tune is a longtime starter at the University of Houston, and like as experienced college quarterbacks can be. And frankly, I love that he came back this past season, but you could almost argue that the season before, when they were 12-2, when things were really rolling, like it might have been like a year that they had more national pub. Tune does not have the size issues that Tank Dell has, but people have him being drafted a lot later. Now I know that there's a couple guys in the first round at quarterback. I guess I'm just asking, in your expertise, what are the pros and cons of drafting a guy like a Tune? I mean, again, 6'2", 220, he's not a giant, but he's not undersized, right? Like, what's going on there?
Yeah, no, I think that first off, the level of competition is always going to take a little bit of a factor into that. When you look at the five guys that are all projected to go ahead of him, they've all played at a high level of football, whether it's a Big Ten, whether it was the SEC. I think that's pretty much where everybody's coming from this year, right? It's 4 SEC guys in the top 5: Florida, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, and then Ohio State. So Big Ten SEC quarterbacks, they were productive in their systems. They have a lot of traits and stuff. So there's a lot that's there with Tune. To me, Tune is by far the 6th best quarterback in this class. I don't think there's really anybody that's too close to him. And I don't know if Clayton's brother listens to this podcast or not, but I have to apologize to him because I ran into him at the Senior Bowl, and I didn't know who he was when I started talking to him. He just started, asking me, "Hey, what do you think about Clayton?" I should have picked up on the hint because he looks a lot like him. but I should have picked up on the hint as soon as he said, "What do you think about Clayton?" And it didn't occur to me. And I proceeded to go into all of my issues that I had with him. I hadn't finished my tape study with him at the time, but I had some issues that had popped at me. They were kind of big and blah, blah. And then that's when he revealed to me that he was his brother. And
awkward moments.
It was like, well, he's like, I got to go join my family. I was like, well, that's a family reunion I'm not being invited to. So, but no, the thing with Clayton is there's a lot of good stuff there. The arm's not great. I think that's the first thing. The arm is somewhat middling compared to NFL level. Doesn't have a lot of driver velocity in his throws. Kind of struggles at times to push the ball into tight windows, which is fine. If you can still make a career in the NFL without having that ability. Joe Burrow right now has very little velocity on a lot of his throws. And in fact, there's a lot of throws when he has to push the ball down the field, the ball's starting to flutter. It's dying as it's getting to the receiver. But his ability to understand the game and know exactly what the defense is doing, where his offense is going to be. It's like he's playing Madden with the offense and defense play diagrams. He can see it on the field. That's the way that he plays. So he knows exactly where everybody's going to be, how people react. So he's smart and savvy like that. So that's kind of what Tune has to do a little bit of. But I think the Tune has good accuracy. Some of the better accuracy out of the quarterbacks in this class. You see him he works the pocket pretty well. His feet are pretty good. Now, I will note that when I was at the Senior Bowl, I was using Tune to get a feel for Tyson Bagent, who was playing on the same team with him down there, just to, see where Bagent was in terms of his speed. Well, I noticed that Bagent was a little bit faster than he was through his breaks with his feet and stuff, which is not a bad thing. It's just saying that, okay, maybe he's a little bit slower getting through his drop, but at least he's consistent with it. He's tweaked his hamstring a couple times. I guess he played through an injury in 22 is kind of what I heard. So I think that probably had a little bit to do with some of the things with tape that wasn't consistent, but he's capable athlete, can extend plays with his feet. Not a great runner, but he's definitely capable. We definitely saw that UTSA, right?
Yeah, and frankly, I almost wonder, like, they didn't run him a lot, and like he's not like the shifty, shake him up kind of guy, but he's not slow either, right? Like,
no.
like he can.
That's what I'm saying. He's capable.
So, yeah,
he's capable. It's like you give him some ability, some space, and he's going to run, and he's going to gash you, for a first down. And I think that I'm not saying he is this quarterback, but a quarterback that did, really well in his career with picking up gains when the defense gave him to it was Aaron Rodgers, right? That was one of the things that made Aaron Rodgers great, was being able to gash defenses, for extra gains. Now, he's not Aaron Rodgers. Don't take it that way, people.
Oh, I had just put down at the title that John Vogel says.
Oh, no. See, I bring this upon myself, Parker. You know how it is.
No, but I think that's fair. I think that, like, as far as like Aaron Rodgers is not a tremendous speed runner. He would take 10 yards if you gave him to him, right?
And that's Clayton. Clayton will do the same exact thing. So he has that ability. So I think that I don't know if Tune is ever going to be a starter in the NFL. I think that if he is, it'll be in the same capacity. And again, I'm not just trying to call out Houston names here, but it'll be the same capacity as Case Keenum, right? Or that type of player.
Oh, you're tugging heartstrings now. Like that's
right?
Nostalgia.
But Keenum has made a career in the NFL, as a career backup, and being that capable guy that can step in and spot start. And he's been called upon to be the starter a few times in his career, with Minnesota. I think Cleveland gave him a contract initially to be one, maybe Washington too. So he's had opportunities to start throughout his career. And I think that Tune could be the type of quarterback that 4, 5, 6 years down the road from now, he's getting those types of opportunities. Does he cash in on them? That's yet to be determined. But I think that there is some ability there with him.
So do you see, I've seen all kinds of predictions on Tune being drafted. You mentioned you had him as your 6th best quarterback. That to me implies a lot earlier than some. I'm also seeing some people put him down in the 6th and 7th round. I agree with you that I don't know where he starts initially off the bat. Like, he's not that kind of a guy yet, but I see him having a long career in the NFL, holding a clipboard for chunks of it. And I could see him on the field in different spots. But I don't know where it will be next fall. Where are you seeing, or where are you projecting him to be drafted? How late, how early?
I'm thinking right there around with Dell, to be honest. It's 3rd round. I think there's a really good chance he comes off in those comp picks, if not right before them. Somebody trades back up into the 3rd round to secure him, because here's the thing, man. Backup quarterbacks are becoming expensive in the NFL. And it's because the quarterback position overall is expensive. You know, to have a good franchise guy, it's $50 million a year right now is the price tag. You know, you can look at guys like Jalen. Jalen just signed one that's worth 55 a year.
Yeah.
You know, and so like that's kind of where the price tag's headed with these quarterbacks. So backups are cashing in with them, right? You know, to have a good, capable backup quarterback on your team, you're looking at anywhere from 5 to 10 million right now. There's some backup quarterbacks that are going to make 12, which sounds like an absurd number. But when you think about the fact that 20 quarterbacks last year in the NFL that started initially did not play through the full season, that's a telling indicator of how important those guys are. You know, so I think that a guy like Tune makes sense in that, you know, third round, early fourth round range, because that's right there in that $4 million a year, $3 million a year that you're going to be paying them, maybe even $2 million, you know, and that's a significant price drop from bringing in a veteran, you know, and this is a guy that you can work with. He's got a lot of experience already. He's going to have a veteran's mentality. So you go into it like that, and, you know, Buccaneers makes a lot of sense to me just because he would fit that type of a system. They brought in Baker Mayfield this year to try to, you know, shore up that quarterback position. Kyle Trask is the other quarterback on the roster. They lost Blaine Gabbert. So bringing in a guy like Tune right there, that's a team that just stands out when I think about Clayton Tune. Like that's just one that just, bam, that hits. That makes a lot of sense to me.
And they've got pick I just saw it 82, so end of the second round. If they wanted to try and like be cheeky and get him early fourth, that'd be a little bit. They don't really have anything at the top of the fourth. They might move up at that point. You mentioned the compensatory picks, the end of the third round, and the comp picks. I mean, you have Carolina, Philadelphia, Kansas City, and then you've got the comp picks themselves: Arizona, Washington, Cleveland, San Fran, Vegas. San Fran.
Yeah, you got 3 from San Fran because of the Ron Carthel got hired by the Titans out of there to be the general manager as part of the new Rooney Rule initiative, and then I think D'Amico Ryans as well was one of those comp picks as well
in Houston. Talk me through any of those teams jump off the page as like, oh, that's a good landing spot for him in that area.
Washington, maybe. San Fran. I don't know if San Fran's going to go with another quarterback that early though, just because they just signed Sam Darnold. It depends if they can move Trey Lance. There are a lot of rumors about the 49ers trying to move Trey Lance right now. I don't know if they're going to get the compensation they want for him, because think about it. They gave up 3 first rounds to move up and take him at 3. Yeah. You know, they're still paying for that right now, right? So when you take – I think they're still paying for it.
I think that's something in this round. Yeah, in this year's draft. I
think it's the last one. The last one was this year's draft. The last pick that they gave up for it. But it's like, that's the thing is, and you're not even going to start him this year most likely because you drafted a guy, Mr. Irrelevant last year, and he's the starter now. You know, it's like as long as his elbow holds up, right?
Yeah,
like, that's the other big question. You know, so that's why you bring in a guy like Sam Darnold. But if they move Trey Lance and they get rid of him before the end of day 2, there is a really good chance I think they go take a third quarterback, and someone like Tune would make a lot of sense there too.
Gotcha. I want to talk some too about the rest of the Houston Cougars involved in the draft, because truthfully, there's a lot. Like, if there are question marks about Tune, it's just about where. The question marks on the rest of these guys, like Javarius Owens, got an NFL Combine invite, but some people have him as a UDFA, right? Derek Parish, it's like, what position do you want him to play? Like, there's a lot of question marks around him just at all. Then DeAnthony Jones is D-lineman that some people have as a UDFA. Art Green, Donnie Mutin. So who out of the rest of the Houston Cougars and your big board, who sticks out as will get drafted?
I think Owens has got a good shot of it. It just kind of depends how the safety board falls, you know, and that's the first part of it. It's so hard to project third round picks. I mean, day 3 picks, just because you don't know how the board's going to fall. You don't know where the position runs come in. You have ideas. You have certain, you know, like, okay, this it could here, could there, whatever. And then you're also looking at potential, like, what's the need? Where's the demand? That's the biggest thing. Positions devalue in the draft, and it's because of the supply, right? You have the supply and you have the demand for supply. Think of it just like basic economics. I guess a lot of people somehow don't know about that anymore. Excuse me if I'm offending people, but it's like sometimes I start explaining things to people and like that, and I get this dumb look on like, what are you talking? Basic. Did you not take economics in high school?
Right. It's a simple X, and it's where do you find the meeting of the
anyway. Right. Yeah.
The invisible hand.
Do I have to get into calculus now? Like that's the one thing I didn't take. Okay, but no, when you have demand, right? Demand creates runs. The last few years, a really good example is the wide receiver position. Everybody's switching to heavy 11 personnel sets. You really need 4 good receivers on your team to be successful now in the NFL. And so as the personnel is transitioning to that means that there was a big supply, right? I mean, a big demand for receivers across the league because everybody needed them. So the demand was met with guys going in the first round, a lot of guys going in the first round the last few years and the early second. And so now this year, you're kind of starting to realize, well, now there's not as much of a supply. When you look across the league, there's not a lot of spots that are open, where the people need starters. So that pushes them down the board. The supply remained the same. There's still a lot of great receivers to be drafted in this class, but the demand's not there. So it's going to push them down. So this is a good year to get receivers, and you get them later in the draft because there's no supply, right. So it pushes them down. So now you got a chance to get a really good deal on them. Safety is kind of one of those positions where you just never know. You just never know. Now safety could, like we've seen, I think we just saw one get suspended. Or he got cut because he was suspended for betting CJ Harris with the Detroit Lions. Yeah. That's a job. CJ Harris was a starter. Right. Now the Lions have to figure out who's going to fill that starting spot. Now that's a job, So I don't think that there were a lot of openings specifically this year. I don't think that there's a lot of talent that pushes people out. But that's a spot. It just depends on what kind of happens the rest of the year and where people fit in and all that. But no, that's a guy. He went to the Shrine Bowl. He looked pretty good at the Shrine Bowl for the most part, from what I saw. Played a lot of single high at Houston. I thought he was a little bit slow for that. I don't think you want to put him in that kind of situation. I thought he was a pretty decent tackler. He understands zone coverage pretty well and can play underneath. So there's some ability there. And then he's a passionate football player. Maybe he chirps a little bit too much, but some guys are going to like that. Some people aren't.
The staff, right? There's no way to tell. Just some people like it, some people don't.
Yeah. It's like when I was at the Tropical Bowl, Justin Broyles was there from Oklahoma, and Justin Broyles could not stop talking. Would not. It was just nonstop. And there were some guys that I was talking to, scouts that are writing their notes. They're going, "Yep, no, can't stand it. Done with it." And there's other guys going, "I love that. Like, that is awesome." Like, that dude is 5'9", 185, and he's still chirping at people, But it's everybody's got a different opinion on this stuff. But I think that the big thing with being the safety is instincts, and that's the question with Owens is he going to be instinctive enough, which is concerning if you still have that question after, let's see, 11, 16, 30, 42 starts. So, right. That's a problem.
And so Javarius with the combine invite, I think Houston fans would be surprised to see not drafted, but like you're saying, that's just the way it works some years.
Yeah. And then the other thing about the combine, just to point out, I'm not trying to interrupt you, hijack your show, but there's over 300 guys that are invited every year to the combine. And there's only 258 draft picks this year.
Well, and 59 this year after the comp picks are all included.
Yeah, so you have 259 picks, and you have over 300 guys invited to the combine, and then you still have these guys that didn't go to the combine that are going to get drafted too. So there's always 70 to 80 guys that go to the combine that aren't drafted.
Yeah, I don't mean to say that it's not common. I just more mean to say, like, I think people heard that and like, oh, okay, he is going to get. Is there a perfect landing spot for a guy like Javarius in your mind that he could get on either in the late rounds or undrafted and like make it stick after a good camp?
Whew, that's a tough one. I think if Minnesota might make sense. The Vikings, that kind of a defense, something that's heavy zone that you're really trying to stay in shells. Philadelphia makes sense. Seattle makes sense. That kind of defense, I think they typically want guys that are a little bit longer, but he's going to be a depth player anyways. So, but I think that's probably where I would want to put him, is in that type of a system. It's a heavy cover 3, zone shell type defense where you're trying to keep the play in front of you. I think he'd be fine in that.
The last guy I need to talk about, though, is Derek Parish. He was everything D lineman. Like, everyone loved him at Houston. I want to say, at least as of the last week of the regular season, but he might have finished the season as the team's leading tackles for loss guy after sustaining a season-ending injury in the 6th game. Like he was that kind of an impact guy for Houston, but he's 6'2", 240. That's not quite a defensive lineman at the NFL level, right? So there's talk about outside linebacker, talk about inside linebacker, talk about fullback, tight end, H-back. He did all kinds of things to prove he can do those things at the pro day. He did run incredibly, I think it was like crazy top percentile fast on his shuttle drill. But again, he is 6'2", 240. You can't change that, right? He's 29-inch arms. That also hurts D lineman. I think you can make up for it. Like Aaron Donald makes up for him some of his stuff, I guess, with other moves, but shorter guys have to make up for with arm. Like normally he doesn't quite have that working in his favor. Mm-hmm. What do you see out of Derek Parish? Do you see certain positions? Do you see certain spot? Like, he's a NFL caliber athlete to me that I don't know what he plays.
Yeah, that's kind of the question. And, I think you said 6'2". We got him at the Shrine Bowl at 6, just shy, an 1/8 inch shy of 6'1". So even smaller, right? So when you talk about a defensive lineman, there's not a lot of guys at 6 foot. There were even 6'1" that have been able to make an impact. There's a few. Aaron Donald is notably one of those guys, 6 foot. I think he's 287, 290 range is usually where he's at. Brendan Graham's another guy that's made an impact at that level, but he's been in the 265, 270 range his entire career. So the problem really there is weight with Parish, right? Is he's too small to play on the defensive line. And then you mentioned the arms. That's a killer. 29-inch arms is not going to get the job done. We have guys that get cut off because they don't have 32-inch arms at the offensive line position.
The cutoff is typically 31, 32. And so for our listener that might not know that kind of stuff with the draft, like 29 is that's 2 inches. You have to be 2 inches closer to the lineman as you're making your move your hand. Like, that's just, a little bit different, right?
Yeah. And so what that creates is an opportunity for, let's say Parish is up against a guard, right? And that guard has 32-inch arms. Well, that means that Parish has a 3-inch disadvantage when he goes in to make his attack. So basically, in theory, the guard can just reach out and grab him like this, like on his shoulders, just hold him there. And there's nothing he can do because his arms are too short. He can't respond. He can't get it back to, the guard. So that's kind of the issue. And I think that's why when he went to the Shrine Bowl, they moved him to fullback and they tried him out there. And, it's tough to make that kind of a transition because especially now with the way that fullbacks are. I think if we're talking about fullbacks 30 years ago, he's got a really good shot, right? Because all you really did as a fullback is you maybe took some handoffs. Like if you were good enough, like Mike Alstott, remember him with the Buccaneers?
Yeah. All like the neck roll.
Yeah, the big giant neck roll and just bulldozing people through the line. Like it made a career doing that, taking 150, 200 carries a year, right?
Right.
And then being a lead blocker as well. But even if you weren't a great ball carrier, that's all you had to be was a lead blocker. Now with the way fullbacks are, if you can find a spot in the league, because that's the question, right? Not everybody uses fullbacks. Now, it was a dying position. It looked like it was about to die, but then you had Shanahan. Ironically, we keep bringing him up in this podcast.
He's pretty important in the NFL.
He really is. He's changed a lot, Mike Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan, they managed to keep that position alive, basically. Kyle brought it back into his scheme. Kyle Juszczyk is the guy, right, that everybody talks about. I'm telling you, in 6 years, we're going to be talking about Hunter Luepke. That's for another podcast. But that's the thing is it's like you have to be a receiver as well now. And we didn't see the hands at the Shrine Bowl that we really wanted to see. Like, I guess there was some promising stuff there, but there were some drops. There were some really easy drops, in practice that you just can't have. So, yeah, it's a big question. Where does he play? What kind of role does he fit? Maybe, you can get him as a cheap outside linebacker as well, where, a lot of teams are going to this 5-1 dog front that's the Eagles used last year a lot that really kind of took over the league. He could potentially be a fifth man fit there. But if that's it, if that's all the role if that's the only role you're going to use him for, that's problematic to making an NFL roster. So I think that's the real. I don't think he gets drafted. I think he is an undrafted free agent that comes in. At the very least, he's a camp tryout. But I think that he is an undrafted free. He's picked up before camp, and he'll go in fighting for a practice squad spot.
Well, and in some ways, an undrafted free agent, if you're being picked that late, is almost advantageous because you kind of get to pick what you're walking into, right? And I don't mean to trying to make lemonade out of lemons too much, but I will say that while it's nice to hear your name, getting to pick where you go would be nice. Is there anywhere you think of or jumps out at you as someone that does this a lot? They're like, oh, they do a really good job of finding a guy that needs a position change or finding an underside, any franchise that does that really well. You're chuckling because I think there's one that sticks out.
Oh yeah, no, because it always sticks out, and it's the Patriots. The Patriots always find a way, especially on defense. They take these mismatched guys that no one else can find a home for, and they find a home for them. So I'm not trying to throw all this cliche Houston stuff in there. It's just that's why Marcus Jones went to the Patriots, because there were a lot of guys who were like, there's stuff here to work with. How do I use them? And Bill looks at it and goes, I can use that. I know exactly how to use that. And that's the same thing with Parish. Is it's exactly what we're talking about. We don't know how to use them, So Bill, the Patriots make a lot of sense.
Well, and that would be Marcus Jones, but we also sent Tank Dell there earlier, and now Derek.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the Houston Patriots, what they're turning into.
And they almost, I guess D'Amico, he played with the 49ers, didn't he? Did he? Oh, wasn't he in the Patriots for a little while too?
He was a Texan. I think I don't actually know. I can't remember where he went after he was a Texan. But they have Caserio, right? That's also part of the
they do.
The Texans and Caserio.
Yep.
All right, John, you have all draft all the time. You've got a lot of stuff going on these days. Where can people find you, your work? I mean, this is draft week, so this is the time to go find John Vogel. Where can people find you?
Best place to do it, man, is just get on Twitter. Follow me at Draft Vogel. Everything that I do gets posted on there at some point anyways, so that's the best way to keep up with everything. And I throw a lot of nuggets up on Twitter too, just because Twitter is an awesome publisher in terms of making thoughts known, right, and making predictions, getting information out quickly. So Twitter's the best place to do it. So just add Draft Vogel. It's the best place to follow me.
Awesome. So follow him at Draft Vogel. Again, it's actually about to be a lot of different football stuff, but for this week, a lot of draft stuff all the time. Thank you so much for stopping by today, John.
Of course. Thank you for having me, Parker. Appreciate you.
And that's going to do it for us today. Thank you again so much to John for coming on today and talking all things Houston Cougars and NFL draft. John's, again, a great follow on all things, really football, and generally does a lot of stuff across the league. So make sure you follow him at Draft Vogel on Twitter. Again, that's where we push all the stuff out. He also enjoys talking with people. That's how we got to know each other on Twitter as well. The background looks different today because it is looking different. We're going to be changing this room into a little bit of a more suitable room for a nursery. So we're moving things around, including moving my collection here. So wave bye to them on your way out. Thank you all so much for listening to Locked On Cougs Today and making us your first listen of the day. If you're looking for a second listen of the day, I'm going to actually plug to go check out the NFL mock draft that the Locked On NFL team did. They worked together with some different college representatives. They went across the entire first round of the NFL draft, did a whole mock draft, and then also did the first picks for several of the teams. I think you'll like the Texans pick, so go check that out. It's a great, big combination of all different angles of Locked On today. Go check that one out. Thank you all so much for subscribing and listening today. Locked On Cougs is a proud member of Locked On Podcast Network. That means your team every day. Go Cougs.